Welcome to SARS Tax Practitioner Readiness Program. Module 7, Part 2, Employer Tax Season Made Easy on eFiling and SAFile. Learning Objectives. At the end of this module, you are expected to understand EMP 501 tax type activation process on eFiling, EMP 501 reconciliation process on eFiling, how to use eFiling to submit the EMP 501 biannual and annual reconciliation, how to download and install SAFile, the reconciliation process on SAFile. In order to transact on eFiling, such as to submit returns, make payments, request statement of accounts, the applicable tax type must be activated on your eFiling profile. If the tax type is on another profile, you will need to transfer it to your profile. In order to do so, the following steps must be done. To activate, deactivate or request tax type transfers, click on Organizations on the top menu, Organizations on the left menu. Select Tax Types, Manage Tax Types, and then select the items that you want to activate or deactivate, and then click on the Submit button. Under the Manage Tax Type table, ensure that the EMP 501 submission is successfully activated. If it's not activated, click on the tick box under the Action menu and click Submit. There will be a maximum of 50 certificates that one can submit via eFiling. The following steps are required in order to submit the reconciliation via eFiling. Firstly, select Returns on the top menu. Select Returns Issued on the left menu and then select Employees Tax EMP 501. Select the period of reconciliation from the drop-down list and then click on the Request Return button. Click Open to access the EMP 501 on the work page. eFiling will display a message if you are choosing to submit an EMP 501 before the 1st of March. You'll be allowed to proceed if it's an exceptional case, such as if its company is going under liquidation, if you're winding up the company, if it's going into insolvencies, if it's an estate case, or if the company is dormant. The EMP 501 work page will now be displayed. Click on the EMP 501 hyperlink to display the declaration. If the EMP 501 was already submitted via SAFile for the same period, then you will not be allowed to submit via eFiling. A warning message will be displayed. The EMP 501 declaration is divided into the following main headings, namely My Reconciliation Declaration, My Tax Certificates. The following subheadings will be available under My Reconciliation Declaration. Employer information. This is the demographic information of the employer, such as the address, contact details of the employer. Then your tax practitioner details if it's applicable, your employment tax incentives as per your EMP 201 declarations, your financial particulars, the EMP 201 declaration information as per the EMP 201. This is the information like your PAYE, your UIF, and your SDL figures. Okay, once you have completed all mandatory fields on the EMP 501 declaration, the color indicator will now change from red to blue. After completing the EMP 501 declaration, you will now be required to capture your tax certificates. In order to do so, select My Tax Certificate subheading tab, select the Add button to start to create a certificate for capturing. The certificate will now be displayed on the left-hand side. To start capturing, click on the certificate. The IRP5 IT3A certificate form is divided into the following main headings. Firstly, employee information. This is the demographic information of the employee, such as their name, surname, ID, passport, banking details, address. The second is the employer information. This is the demographic information of the employer. Then we have the tax certificate information. Here you would capture the income, the source codes, such as the salaries, the allowances, the deductions, the PAYE, the UIF of the employee. And then we have lastly the employment tax incentives, ETI. This is where you capture the details if applicable. Always ensure all mandatory fields are captured on the tax certificate. Once the indication turns blue, click on the Validate button. The validation does a test to ensure that the certificates meet the business requirement specification and that there is no validation errors on the certificate itself. So once you've selected Validate, click on the Yes button to proceed with all updates. eFiling will run validations and issue out a report if there are any errors that were picked up on the tax certificates. If the validation has passed, click on Submit Form and then click on the Agree button to submit the EMP 501 declaration to SARS. A message will be displayed to inform you that the EMP 501 has been successfully submitted to SARS. The following video will take you through a step-by-step process to submit the EMP 501 via eFiling.
Welcome to this tutorial on how to complete and submit the Employer Reconciliation EMP 501 on SARS eFiling. If you aren't already an e-filer, go to www.sars.gov.za, click Register and follow the process. For further assistance with e-filing registration, refer to the How to Register for e-filing and Manage Your User Profile guide available on the SARS website. Once registered, log into e-filing using your username and password. You will land on the dashboard. If the applicable organization portfolio is not set as default, you will need to open it. Click My Profile on the left and then on Portfolio Management. Click Go to Portfolio once you have selected the applicable portfolio. You can use the search function to look for a specific taxpayer using one of the following: company name, registration number, tax reference number. Once you have found that taxpayer, click View Taxpayer. Please note that submissions of the employee tax certificates are for the interim reconciliation, i.e. period 08, March to August, and the annual reconciliation, i.e. period 02, March to February. To access your returns, click Returns on the top menu, then Returns Issued on the left side menu. Next, click on Employees Tax, EMP 501. This will take you to the Return Search page. Select the applicable period and click Request Return. This will immediately display a return for the period requested on the Return Search screen. Click the Open link. Note: if you have selected a final reconciliation before the end of the filing period, this is an exception process and should not be used other than liquidation, winding up the company, insolvency, estate cases, dormant. The following screen will display, and you will be required to confirm that you wish to continue and provide a reason why you're submitting the reconciliation before the end of the filing period. This will issue the return on the EMP 501 work page. To open the return, click on the EMP 501 link. You will now be able to complete the tax certificates once the EMP 501 is opened. Before completing the EMP 501 for interim and annual submissions, the IRP5 IT3A certificates must be completed first. The IRP5 IT3A certificates should reflect the income, deductions, and tax as calculated at this point. You must provide copies of the final IRP5 IT3A certificates to employees after submitting the annual reconciliation for period 02. Please retain copies for your own records as well. To add an IRP5 IT3A certificate, click on the My Tax Certificates tab and then click Add. It is important to note that on e-filing, employers can only file a reconciliation that contains a maximum of 50 IRP5 IT3A certificates, tax certificates. Complete all the mandatory fields. Note: the certificate number is a unique 30-digit number allocated to each specific IRP5 IT3A certificate issued by the employer. The certificate number comprises the following: the first 10 digits equals PAYE reference number, or alternatively, the income tax reference number, if only non-taxable employees are employed and the employer is not registered for PAYE. The next 4 digits equal transaction year. The next 2 digits equals last 2 digits of period of reconciliation, 08 or 02. The next 14 digits can contain any unique combination of alpha and numeric characters. Now complete the applicable details for the employee, starting with the employee information. The employee address details, consisting of the residential address and the postal address, and then the bank account details. Ensure that you complete all mandatory fields. The PAYE reference number, SDL reference number, UIF reference number, and trading or other name will be pre-populated. Complete the employee physical work address. This is the employee's place of work. Complete the tax certificate information, starting with capturing the pay period's information. ETI employment date is the initial date of employment or the date employed by an associate employer as defined by the ETI Act. Certificate tax period start date refers to the first date of the employee's tax period in the relevant year of assessment. Certificate tax period end date refers to the last date of the employee's tax period in the relevant year of assessment. Periods in year of assessment. The periods are determined according to the pay intervals at which the employer pays employees. Number of periods worked refers to the number of pay periods for which the employee worked during the relevant tax year. Voluntary over-deduction. This field indicates if the employee requested over-deduction of PAYE. Fixed rate taxation indicator. This field indicates if the employee's tax was calculated at a fixed rate because of non-standard employment. Note: if the employee's tax calculation is changed from a fixed rate to the tables and vice versa, a separate certificate must be submitted. Complete the directive numbers issued by SARS. Directive numbers must correspond to the directives issued, and 9999999 and 000000 numbers are not allowed. Note: ensure that the directive number, the source code, and the amount relating to the directive captured on the certificate are the same as on the directive. Should the information be incorrect, the individual or employee will not be able to submit their income tax return, ITR 12. When completing the financial information section. Income received. Insert the amounts, rands only, and sources codes applicable to all remuneration paid or payable by the employer to the employee. Non-taxable income, 3696. This field will be auto-calculated on the form and is the sum of all the non-taxable income source code amounts. Gross employment income, taxable, 3699. This field will be auto-calculated and is the sum of all the income source code amounts not included in 3696 above, and is only applicable from the 2017 year of assessment. Note: for years of assessment prior to 2017, the following fields will need to be completed. Gross retirement funding income, 3697, is the sum of all the income retirement funding income amounts. Gross non-retirement funding income, 3698, the sum of all the non-retirement funding income amounts. The gross employment income taxable, 3699 field will be auto-calculated and is the sum of all the income source code amounts not included in 3696 above. Insert the amounts, rands only, and the sources codes applicable to all amounts deducted, including employer information codes. For example, codes starting with 44. Note that you must use rand and cents when completing the fields under this section. Complete all the mandatory fields. For more information on the source codes and descriptions, refer to the latest Business Requirement Specifications for PAYE Employer Reconciliation available on the SARS website. You can now complete the declaration by clicking on the My Reconciliation Declaration tab. The EMP 501 form is pre-populated with the applicable reference numbers for PAYE, SDL, and/or UIF and the trading name. Complete all mandatory information, starting with the Diplomatic Indemnity Indicator field that is optional for years prior to 2020 and mandatory from 2020 going forward. If applicable, declare the amounts for the Employment Tax Incentive, ETI. Note: If you declared the ETI on the EMP 201, the ETI amount will be pre-populated. If no ETI is pre-populated, ETI was either not declared or was subsequently reversed via either the EMP 201 or EMP 501 process. ETI cannot be added or increased on the EMP 501. For further information on the Employment Tax Incentive (ETI), refer to the Guide for Employers in respect of Employment Tax Incentive available on the SARS website. Declare the amounts on the financial particulars. Due to COVID-19 tax relief, the SDL liability field will be defaulted to 0 and locked for the months of May, June, July and August 2020 to make provision for the SDL payment holiday. This will be a once-off incentive and will not continue in the future. Once you have completed both the EMP 501 declaration and all the IRP5 IT3A certificates, you may use the Save option to save your return if you wish to edit or submit it later. Alternatively, you may submit your return by clicking Submit Form. Note: if a mandatory field was not completed, you will get a pop-up message notifying you to complete the field. Complete the mandatory fields and click Submit Form. Carefully read the declaration and then click Agree. Your return will be submitted. Now click Continue. This will take you to the EMP 501 work page. The status of your return will now be displayed as filed through eFiling. Congratulations! You have successfully completed and submitted your EMP 501 declaration on SARS eFiling.
Please visit the following link on our SARS YouTube channel, SARS TV, to access the video. eFile is the software that can be utilized to also submit your reconciliation. The employers are required to submit an employer reconciliation declaration, the EMP 501, to SARS twice a year. Interim reconciliation declaration for the first 6 months, and then that's from the 1st of March to the 31st of August, must be submitted by the 31st of October. The annual reconciliation, this is for the full year, that means from March till February, must be submitted by the 31st of May. The opening of the employer filing season will be communicated before the start of each filing period. The employer filing season dates will be made available on the SARS website. By using eFile, an employer can now submit and make payments to SARS. In an event that the employer has more than 50 employees, employers need to make use of the eFile software that can be downloaded from the SARS website. Important things to remember is to ensure that your PC is compatible to download and operate eFile. eFile is an offline system. In order to submit to SARS, you will need to insert your eFiling login details. When creating login details, the main username will be defaulted to admin. Make sure that you back up your database on eFile. Always update your software when prompted to do so. Always read the pop-up message before clicking OK. How to download and install eFile. You will need to go to SARS eFiling homepage, which is www.sarsefiling.co.za. On the homepage, you're going to click on the eFile icon. Once you click on the eFile icon, you will be able to access the eFile download page. Alternatively, if you go to www.sars.gov.za, you can go to Business Employers and then select eFile, and you're going to click on the link to download the latest version of eFile. Please click here. eFile is a Windows-based software and is not compatible with your Apple Mac machines. The setup file needs to be downloaded by clicking on the download button. Minimum system requirements are also stated on the bottom left-hand side corner of your screen. Other software requirements include Adobe Reader and zip utilities, which are also available to be downloaded. Also ensure that you have the required Java version by clicking on Java Info. The eFile employee setup. First-time users will have to complete a quick user registration after installing the application. Existing users do not need to repeat the registration setup after updating or installing or reinstalling the application. Your eFile employer database will not be removed during the uninstallation or reinstallation. A tip, always ensure that you have a current backup as a precaution when you update or reinstall the software. Once you have downloaded the setup file, click on the folder, click on the Setup Employer icon to launch the Setup Wizard. Click on the Next button to proceed. With any software installation, there will always be license agreements and terms and conditions to accept. Click on I accept the terms, and then the install button will become available to click on. The compatible Java Zulu is also included in the setup file, and once you click the next, it will install as part of the software package. Any earlier version of eFile will be now replaced with the newer version. Please ensure that you have made a recent backup file before installing the new version. During the installation of eFile, you might experience errors. That could be based on older version of eFile, or there could be an antivirus that's preventing the installation. It is always recommended that you remove the previous version of eFile, or you can disable your virus program to successfully install eFile. Once the software has installed successfully, the eFile icon will be now loaded onto your desktop. The login screen will now be displayed. You're going to type in your username and password if you have previously had eFile installed on your computer. Use your admin username and password. So let's go through the login screen. For example, if you had forgot your password, use the forgot password option. This will display your password hint that you created. If you forgot your password, use the secure reminder once you have captured your active e-filing username and password, and then your password will now be displayed. If you have a backup file, you can use the restore backup to restore your database onto your eFile software. If you're installing eFile for the first time, you will need to create login credentials. Admin will be your primary username, and then you need to create two separate user logins. You will need to create passwords using the following rules. You need to use at least 8 characters, including one capital letter, one small letter, one number, and one special character like an @ or a $sign. Once you have successfully created login credentials and logged into eFile, you need to start creating an employer. It's important to first create an employer to enable to activate the tab on the home screen. Processing certificates. You can import your payroll CSV files, or you can create IRP5s manually on eFile to be able to balance your submission. Capturing the EMP 501 SARS data needs to be accepted. You need to compare your financial figures between the IRP5s and the EMP 201s. You need to look at your validations. When submitting the reconciliation, you need to file the declaration. You need to have your e-filing login details on hand. You need to have a look at the validations of the EMP 501s and the certificates, and generating the certificates only on the final recon that will this be available, and not on the biannual recon. If you want to add an employer, click on Employer Admin on the left hand side, then click on View Edit Change to add the employer. Please complete all mandatory fields. For example, if the employer is located in a special economic zone, click on the drop-down menu on Employer SEZ and select the appropriate zone that they are located in. Once the employer has been created, you can now proceed to adding the certificates. If the employer has a payroll system, they will be required to export a payroll file from their payroll system in a CSV format. They need to save it on their local disk drive, like their desktop. And if they want to import the payroll file, then they will need to click import on the left hand side of the screen. Then they will click import export payroll file. A message box will pop up. Click import payroll file. Select the file from the local drive to be imported into eFiling. A validation will be done on eFiling on any payroll file that is imported, and a report can be located under Utilities on the left-hand side and under the Import Payroll file. Please consult your import payroll report to ensure that all warnings are addressed before you can proceed to the EMP 501 declaration. In your validation report, it'll give you details on what the errors are on each certificate, which need to be remedied before you can proceed to the submission of the EMP 501. On the left-hand side, click on Employee Admin, View Edit Employee to access imported certificates, or if you are manually capturing certificates, click on the Add Certificate. The employee demographics are mandatory as highlighted by the red asterisk. Click on Add Certificate to proceed to the certificate details. Always select the correct transaction year and period of reconciliation. The certificate type will be depending whether it's an IRP 5 where PAYE was deducted or IT3A where no PAYE was deducted. Date of employment needs to be captured correctly, especially if you have claimed ETI for this employee. Select voluntary over deductions if you are deducting PAYE above the tax tables. Select fixed rate if you are deducting according to a fixed percentage. You will need to save the certificate first in order for the Manage Source Code button on the bottom right-hand side corner to be active. Once the certificate information has been captured, click on Save. After the certificate is saved, it will be listed along with other certificates that have been created for the employee on the database. If the certificate is saved successfully, the status of the certificate will be created and will be in green. If it is not saved successfully or is incomplete, the certificate status will be incomplete and in yellow. If the certificate has been cancelled, the status will be cancelled and in red. And if the certificate has been submitted to SARS, it will have a submitted status and will be in black. eFiling allows you as the user to cancel individual certificates, or you can select a range you wish to cancel. If by any chance you have realized that you made an error, you are allowed to revive those cancel certificates. You will need to click on the action and the period you wish to cancel or revive certificates. You have successfully captured your tax certificates and now want to proceed to the EMP 501. On the left hand side, select Reconciliation, then click on Declaration, select the tax year and click Request. A pop-up message will prompt you either to accept SARS data. This will pre-populate your EMP 501 based on the EMP 201 declarations that you have submitted to SARS, or you can use your own values. That means you're going to be manually capturing the EMP 201 information onto the EMP 501, or you can use the reinstate ETI. eFiling username and password will be prompted to be submitted to accept the SARS data. If you are not the authorized user on eFiling, you will receive a validation error, which means either the EMP 501 is not activated on eFiling or you don't have sufficient rights on eFiling. To ensure that you have the correct user rights, click on Organizations on top, then Organizations on your left hand side. You're going to click on Tax Types. You're going to click on Manage Tax Types and ensure that the EMP 501 submission is successfully active. Then you're going to go to organizations on top, and then on the left hand side you're going to go to organizations, rights groups, manage groups, and ensure that the company is ticked under the manage payers. You're going to update, then you're going to go to manage groups, click open, and ensure that the EMP 501 is ticked. Then you're going to go to user on top, then user on the left. You're going to click on change details. You're going to click on update rights and ensure that you have the correct rights and the group is ticked. For example, it's the system default if the company is under that group. Then you're going to go to organizations, change details, access rights, and ensure that the system default is ticked. If you have the sufficient rights and roles, the EMP 501 will now be displayed in Forms Viewer. At this step, you'll be required to complete all mandatory information on the EMP 501. Click on the Financial Particulars tab to display the EMP 501. If you choose to accept data, then the EMP 501 will be populated based on the data submitted on your monthly EMP 201. Alternatively, if you chose own values, you would need to manually capture the data in the appropriate fields. Also ensure that you capture payments made for each month for non-compliance, administrative penalties, and understatement penalties, excluding ETI, on the payments field on the right-hand side. Once you have captured your EMP 501 data, always check the total liability for PAYE, as this will be auto-calculated as the tax certificate totals plus the tax paid on behalf of the employer plus the audit results not in the certificates will be added together. The total liability for SDL and URF will also be auto-calculated, and this will be as the tax certificates totals plus the audit results not in the certificate. These fields will inform you if there's any differences between the tax certificate liabilities and the EMP 501 data. If the result is a positive value, indicates an amount due by you, whereas a negative value will indicate an amount due to you. After you have checked the figures in the EMP 501, you need to click on File on the top left-hand side corner, File and close the menu on the top left-hand side of the page. After you have clicked on File, File and close in the declaration, you will be routed back to the eFiling where you will be required to click on Submit to SARS under the Submission tab. Tick the submission and click on the Submit button. You will be required to enter your eFiling credentials to submit the reconciliation to SARS. Once you have submitted your EMP 501 to SARS and you would wish to view the status of your submission, go to Utilities on the left-hand side, click on EMP 501 Status Dashboard, locate your submission and then click on the Update button. Click on the OK in the status update window that will appear on the screen in front of you. The status of the submissions will now appear with the statuses, either to state that the declaration has been processed or if it failed, which means you will need to go back to the EMP 501 to check for potential errors. The PAYE status dashboard can be accessed on the left-hand side under the Reconciliation tab. The dashboard gives you a single view of what your PAYE account looks like. For example, the summary of the tax certificates received and your EMP 201 and EMP 501 liabilities. SARS has introduced the Employee Tax Validation (ETV) on the reconciliation. Employers are obligated to deduct the correct amount of employees' tax from an employee's remuneration and to declare and pay such amount to SARS on a monthly basis. This means that the employer cannot deduct amounts which are more or less than the amount that is properly deductible from the employee's remunerations and calculated at the appropriate tax rates or tax deduction tables. For this reason, the employer should not have any large or over deductions of PAYE unless the employee requested the employer in writing to deduct an additional amount of PAYE. The ETV report will pick up any discrepancies. To access the ETV report, under System Utilities, EMP 501 Status Dashboard, under the ETV column, click on ETV. Once you have clicked on the ETV button, the errors will be displayed and you will need to save the file in a text form by clicking to the Save button. You will be required to go through the report and rectify any discrepancies that have been highlighted on the ETV report. If you are trying to open a PDF document on eFiling and if you receive an error to state that the PDF cannot be displayed, you might have the incorrect version of Adobe, or you might not have enabled Adobe as a default application. All you need to do is go to Utilities on the left, click on System Configurations, click on the checkbox next to Render PDF with Default Application. On the screen, you can also test your Java version or install Forms Viewer. If you wish to do an ETI reinstatement request, click on the Reinstate ETI button when prompted. This is where an employer incorrectly submits an incorrect EMP 501. They will be now able to request a reinstatement of ETI without going through the debt management process or manual intervention. A new option was added on the declaration page when you click on Request. This will be a real-time request that will return pre-populated values as per the original EMP 201 submitted where ETI was stated. All the standard checks will still be performed and the request may also be declined. A pop-up message will provide a reason if the reinstatement request was unsuccessful. For any technical support on eFile or eFiling, specifically if you're having problems with the setup, it can be referred to SARS on the following email address: support@sarsefiling.co.za. It's advisable that you put through a screen print and a detailed process that was followed to whereas your error has incurred. You should be now able to submit your EMP 501 declaration via SARS eFiling and the SARS EasyFile software. Thank you.